Okay, in this video we're going to talk about frequency domain. So these would be effects that deal with the frequency content of a piece of audio. And the most common one of those is an EQ. So I've taken the mix excerpt that we used for our routing exercise last week and have it loaded up, and I have soloed a guitar part here. And I have put an EQ on the track where that guitar is. So this is guitar 3. And I have inserted the Pro EQ, which is just one of the EQs that comes with Studio One. Now, if you're using the Studio One free version, it does not have Pro EQ, but it does have this one called Channel Strip, which has an EQ in it. And I'm going to do a separate video where I go through the ones that are only in Studio One Prime. But the Channel Strip works similarly, just doesn't have quite as many features. But for our explanation today, I'm going to show you Pro EQ. So really what happens in an EQ is we have a series of filters. So there's something called a low cut filter, if I turn this on. And what it does is it cuts out low frequencies. So if I let this play. Right, and there's a feature here called slope, which is how quickly the filter falls off. So if we put it at its highest setting, that's 48 decibels per octave. Right, and here, so now I can turn it off. And there's another one, which is a high cut filter, which does the same thing, but from the other end. And if you just move it around a lot, it sounds like a wah-wah pedal. So that's high cut and low cut. Sometimes you will hear them described in the opposite way as high pass and low pass, but it would be high pass on the bottom and low pass on the top. Then each of these other filters, low frequency, low mid, mid, high, are filters that will boost or cut at a particular range, and then you can change the frequency of them as well. There's also a setting called Q, which is how sharp or broad the boost or cut is. So the smaller that Q number, the broader the boost or cut. So what I'm going to do is just let this play, and I'm going to play with this a little bit and let you hear sort of how it affects the sound. And one thing to be careful of is with really broad Q settings, it just sounds like it's making everything louder. Do not make the mistake of using your EQ to get volume. There's better ways to do that, and we'll get to that. Right, so you can boost or cut in any given space, and there are multiple filters here. Oops, let me turn that one off. Let's go back to this high frequency one, because this high frequency filter actually has a couple of different shapes. It's on shelf right now. Peaking is the one where it goes, sort of centers the bandwidth, or the frequency setting. It centers around that. And then shelves each have different, essentially slope settings in the same way that the high cut and the low cut have. So the low and high frequency filters have either the shelf setting or the peaking setting. The ones in the middle are all what they call peaking here, or sometimes it's called band pass as well. So the thing that you want to remember is that each frequency domain effect will have a setting called frequency here. There will be a setting called gain that will either boost or attenuate that frequency. And most of them have Q, which is how wide or narrow the effect is. Some of them will have slope, which functions as Q, but sort of only on one side of the frequency point. And so since these, the high cut and the low cut, only cut, there's also no gain setting, right? It's just a frequency setting and a slope. But all the ones that give you the ability to both boost and cut will also have a gain setting. So let's play with this a little bit on this guitar part and see. So another thing I want you to realize is we can't really boost or cut things that aren't there. So if we look way up here in the high range, there's not a lot of energy. So if I take, let's not do that one. Let's do this one. And if I put it way up in this high range, whether I boost or cut, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. Right, you hear it does things there. But up here, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference because there's no energy up there. When you play it, you don't see anything. And there is a little bit of low stuff here, but the same is true, say, if you have like a female vocal track, and there's nothing in the super bass end. Boosting or cutting down is not going to make any difference because there's nothing there to boost or cut. So an EQ won't create frequencies where they don't exist. It will only boost or cut the ones that are there. And what I want you to remember is that each one has a frequency setting and either Q or slope. And then the ones that can boost or cut also have a gain setting that allows you to either boost or cut things.